Hey, it's Dr. Schmidt. So I thought of an analogy I want to share with you related to how the body functions when you're healthy versus when you're ill. So I got this poster here. I've shown this poster several times. And let me give you a little preview on this poster. And I know you're not going to be able to read the words and stuff, but I'm going to point it out. Just what matters is you got this pink part here, yellow, and then that's the main part, the pink and the yellow. Okay, so what this is the Metabolic Pathways poster created by a guy named Dr. Donaldson. And this was his life's work. He died in 2012 at the age of 96. And so we're going back, way back when all this stuff was being discovered. And he went to all these conferences and he had some mentors and he communicated with university professors and researchers. And he came up with the main metabolic pathways. And there's like over 500 of them on this poster. The metabolic pathways that our bodies use in various states, in various situations. So I came up with an analogy on some of these pathways, that the most important ones that pertain to you and I, and why you want to get into ketosis, why fasting's good. And people talk about ketosis, fasting, carnivore, animal fat, animal protein, because they feel good and the clinical trials support it. And some people get into physiology, and that's what this is. It's my favorite discussion is what happens inside the body. It's absolutely fascinating. And so let's get started on this. So the main point is you get ATP. That's the fuel for the body. And that's created down here with this looks like a little circus carousel, and it actually rotates. And when your body's this is inside the mitochondria. There's 3,000 to 12,000 mitochondria in each cell, depending on the type of cell. So there's a lot of these in the cells. And when your mitochondria are working well, you get 30 to 36 ATP. That's a lot of ATP per cycle. So it's very efficient. Now, a long time ago, the mitochondria was a different organism. And our cells, that's the pink. You can see the pink here, and are surrounding. I got this microphone. I can hold on to it so my voice doesn't fade. Surrounding the mitochondria, it's all pink. That's the cell cytoplasm. And so the cell itself is like our bodies, but a long time ago, our cells engulfed mitochondria, which were a separate organism. And it's been a symbiotic relationship ever since. And they're really good at creating ATP, but our cells are not. So where do our cells create ATP? There's three locations. Number one here, that's glycolysis, that's sugar burning. You get 2 ATP and that's it. Not efficient compared to 30 to 36. And then the more of this that you do, the more likely you're going to get shunted over here. And this is bad. And so you have lactate fermentation. I've talked about that forever. And alcohol fermentation, ethanol. And both of those, you only get, with the alcohol fermentation, you only get 2. And then the kicker here is that with lactate fermentation, something I just learned, you get -4 ATP. So when you're burning lactate as fuel, because this doesn't work good, and your glycolysis is in excess because you're diabetic, or maybe you have cancer, and you're using lactate as your fuel and you're ill, you get -4 ATP per cycle. And that's why people in the lactic acid cycle, it's called cachexia. That's how they die. It takes 6 months or more and their body wastes away. One time I had a guy drive from Illinois to my office. His wife drove, and he used to weigh 185. He had 4 cancers. And at the time I saw him, he's 102 pounds. And I'm thinking to myself, what is he doing here in a car driving to Michigan? He should be in hospice. And he died like 2 months later. And there was a lot of denial going on there. He goes, I keep losing weight, but I've plateaued at 110. And I said, yeah, but our records just show that you're at 102. And he was completely perplexed at the fact that he kept losing weight. And he had 4 cancers. So that's the lactic acid cycle, and that's what you want to avoid. So let me give you this analogy here. When you're, let's say now pyruvate, that's right here. There's this there's a chemical called pyruvate. The end process of glycolysis is pyruvate. I call it the money. I actually brought money. I brought change. I bought pennies. So we're going to use that analogy as the money. When you make pyruvate from sugar, it goes into the mitochondria. If the mitochondria are healthy, if you're doing well physically, that pyruvate goes into the mitochondria, and then you can start this whole cycle of making 30 to 36 ATP. But the problem occurs when the mitochondria don't work very well. So sometimes people are born with dysfunctional mitochondria, and they don't have enough energy to detoxify. They don't have good energy for their immune system. They get a virus injected into their arm, and then they have a fever, a seizure, and now they have autism in 12 hours. That's because their mitochondria aren't working very well. These, kids, especially boys, and boys have testosterone that sort of predisposes them to autism versus girls. Okay, and then so you can look up mitochondrial disease. That's the modern term for the old term lactic acidosis. It's really the same thing, and it's this complex of physiological processes. So when the pyruvate goes into the mitochondria, now you start the Krebs cycle here, an electron transport chain here, and what you end up with is actually the very first step. You go from pyruvate to another thing called acetyl-CoA. The kicker here is when you're in ketosis, the ketones here become acetyl-CoA in 1-2 steps. So ketosis is 2 steps, and it's super easy to have healthy mitochondria in ketosis because you're feeding them so easily. And ketosis and fasting and autophagy enhances the number of mitochondria. It enhances the way the mitochondria function. There are nutrients that help the mitochondria. There's carnitine, there's CoQ10, and eating healthy fats. It's all good for the mitochondria. Having healthy membranes is super important. This blue line right there, that's membranes, this blue line. The green line is also membranes. And your membranes are intelligent. They have to be smart. And what makes them smart is healthy fats. So when you're eating canola oil and margarine and Crisco and soybean oil, those are not real foods. They're not smart. I mean, the fats have to be smart, like saturated fat, lard, tallow. You eat them and then they go right here and they're smart. They do things. They can accept hydrogens and electrons, and they move things around. Whereas these plasticized fats like canola oil and soybean oil, they don't move anything around. They get stuck. They're sticky, and you don't have this fluid motion going on inside. So where was I at? Oh, acetyl. Okay, so ketone bodies. 2 steps later, you got acetyl-CoA. That's 1 step after the pyruvate. All right, now, so once you get the acetyl-CoA, now you can make 30 to 36 ATP. And then so there's different ways to potentially get in there. One is through fats. This is all fats. See that yellow bar? And then the ketone bodies are in this box. And then you got the sugar. So the sugar, let's say the acetyl-CoA is $1. I got 100 pennies right here. There's the sugar. See, these pennies are dirty. They make my hands dirty. They fall on the floor. They're cumbersome. You can't put them in your pocket. People think you got something weird in your pocket. And cashiers don't like this. That's burning sugar. 100 pennies, and you end up with $1. Okay. So, and people, some people promote, especially vegans, promote sugar burning as like the end all, and your brain needs it, and it's good for athletes. No, not at all. All right. The next analogy would be, here's 4 quarters. That's fat. That's this right here. And there's a lot of different like steps in here to make, this line of fats becomes acetyl-CoA. And then the second line, there's 4 lines of fats listed out here. They all easily kind of slip into acetyl-CoA. All right. But you can see that there's some complexity in there. Whereas with ketones, it's simply a piece of paper. It's $1 like that. it's cash money to make that acetyl-CoA, pyruvate to acetyl-CoA. So there's my analogy. I got pennies on the floor now. And you notice some of these, like this one looks pretty new. What year is this one? This is 2013. It's nice and shiny. It's copper. Look at that. It's pretty. Look, it shines. And then this one looks like it got ran over by a truck like that. What's the difference between these two? Well, one looks better. One's more attractive. The other one's dirty. They're both sugar. It's still the same sugar. Now this one, the pretty one could be fruit, and then the dirty one is junk food. It ends up being sugar anyways. But when you take in the junk food, you're also taking in the rubber that left by the tire when it got run over by the truck. You're getting in like toxicity and the fake fats and all that kind of stuff. But sugar is sugar once it gets down into this level. Okay. Now, so I guess the main point here is I'm going to wrap this up as far as like my instruction. It's been 11 minutes. The main point here is that as you go into ketosis and you're fasting and you're doing burst training to drop that the blood glucose down, get into fat burning mode, you're creating a buffer between death and health. You're extending this cushion so that you live longer. Okay. And then you're using the fats here, you're using ketones here, and you're avoiding glycolysis, which is key. And the more you avoid glycolysis, the more you avoid lactate fermentation. And like I said, lactate fermentation is -4 ATP. I wrote a little note right there. -4 ATP, and you waste away. So this is why people who they could be healthy runners eating salads every day, eating their little 4 ounces of chicken once a day. They've never been in ketosis and they have a heart attack at 65. And they didn't see it coming. Their cholesterol is completely normal. Their blood pressure is completely normal. And they have the physiological processes going on inside their body. And that's never been reversed because ketosis reverses it. Same thing with cancer. That's another video about, and I have videos on the mechanism of cancer. Now, one other point is that some people don't believe me when I talk about this. Can you believe it? It's right here on the poster. I just explained it. It's on the poster. So it's the mechanism. It's how things work inside the body. All right. So it's been 12 and a half minutes. Let me answer some questions. Here's the second question right here. I recently got gout. Should I stay away from red meat now? Well, red meat could be a trigger for you to make gout flare up, but that doesn't mean it's a cause. The cause is sugar and carbs. So as you lower your sugar and carbs, your uric acid goes down. And then later, and it may take 6 months or a year, later then you can eat red meat. Can you eat red meat now? I guess I would avoid it because of the state of your biochemistry. But remember, red meat's not the cause. Okay. All right. What's your take on coffee? Do you drink it? No, I don't drink it. That's my take on it. I had it once. It hurt my stomach when I was a kid and never had it since. He doesn't like coffee. That's right. Sean Davidson knows that. All right. Using your knowledge to fight Morgellons. Let's talk about Morgellons. That's a good question, Ashley. Morgellons is, Google it, and maybe it's different now than when I studied it, 6 or 8 years ago. But at the time, it was a reaction to the glyphosate that's sprayed on agricultural crops. Maybe somebody's changed that, maybe, I don't know. But that was the definition when I studied it. And I had a guy come in and he said he had it and he would go like this on his skin and things would like pop right out. And that was the only time that I ever saw it. And so somebody said to me once that they had a patient with Morgellons and they're doing everything right to get rid of it, avoiding wheat and all that, and it didn't go away. And I said, well, maybe it's not Morgellons, it's something else. So anyways, you want to avoid plants that are sprayed. And like when you look at like white bread at a restaurant, it's going to have 5 times the amount of glyphosate that it should, or some, astronomical number like that. So this is where you get as organic as you possibly can, depending on availability and budget. And I just told somebody on the phone about commercial versus organic beef. I did an experiment last week and I had 4 patties of regular meat, regular conventional meat, and my heart was going real fast after I ate them. And then 2 days later, I had the same amount of meat, but it was grass-fed from a grocery store, and my heart was very calm and relaxed. So big difference, same quantity of meat, same time of day. It was actually dinner time, and big difference in how my body reacted to that. Okay, so keep that in mind. I've been curious about using the carnivore diet to help with opiate withdrawal and speed up detox. I would agree with that 100%. To do the carnivore diet to help get rid of addictions, absolutely. One time I had a guy that was a post heroin addict, and he had quit heroin like 13 years earlier, and he had apocalyptic thinking. He had deep ache in his calf muscles. He had chest tightness, anxiety. And I asked him, when you were on heroin, did it help, get rid of all those symptoms? He said, yes. And then I said, but did it make it worse in the future? Like later it made it worse. He said, yes. Same is true with all the drugs, like opiates. They make it feel better at the time, but they make it worse later. And that totally makes sense when you know lactic acidosis. So meat is the best solution for that. Okay, along with whatever other detox things you're going to be doing. Okay, so yeah, this thing keeps jumping around. I have not really studied deuterium. Greetings from the Virgin Islands. Canada, hi. Best analogy ever. Thanks, Kristen. Kristen works in my office. What's your opinion on killing Morgellons or bad EMF overload? Love to see a video on your opinion. I would do it. Well, bad EMF overload, I load myself up with safe space protection. Just Google my name. Just search my name on YouTube plus safe space or EMF, and you'll see what I have. I had one device. I thought it was on the floor. Oh, it's probably back in there. I'm in ketosis, but my shoulder got frozen. Any suggestions? Yes. Frozen shoulder is typically mechanical. There's a guy named Dr. Francis Murphy, and I believe he's in Dallas. He's a chiropractor. And he, in his clinical practice, discovered a way to adjust the upper neck, lower occiput in such a way that released what's called the accessory nerve. And the accessory nerve activates muscles here. So when people have a frozen shoulder, this is what happens. They raise their arm up and they can't go like this. What they do instead is like that. There's just no extra motion beyond this because that's the accessory nerve. So, and you can Google him and you can see videos where he has somebody raise their arm up, and they're stuck. He adjusts them. And then 5 minutes later, they're going like this and their face goes like that. They're just in shock that now their shoulder works. So it's probably worth it to go fly to Dallas and see him, or he's been training chiropractors across the country. So maybe he has a referral network. So check that out for your frozen shoulder. Otherwise, it's gonna take 9 months for that just to go away on its own. There was a question earlier about ME. I can't find it now. Okay, so next question here. Let me see where I'm at. There we go. Carnivore then for chronic fatigue syndrome, ME. Boy, I wish I knew what ME was. Myalgia? Myasthenia? No, I don't remember. Yeah, do it. Carnivore for that. Yeah, for sure. It's the best thing. And I don't say that lightly. And there's many reasons why going carnivore is really good for somebody who is chronically ill. How do you feel about resistance? Let me go back to this one. Would taking ubiquinol be better than CoQ10 to have mitochondria produce more and better energy? I don't really know the difference between the two. I haven't really studied that. Can you eat meat and poultry on a dry, hard fast? Dry? Well, a dry, hard fast would be no food, no water, no brushing your teeth, no showering. So no, you can't have the meat when you're on a dry, hard fast. Okay. Autohemotherapy will rid you of all sorts of psora. How do you feel about resistant starch? I don't eat it. Should I add to my diet? I don't know. How did you cook your patties? On the grill. What best way to get mold out of sinus without surgery? You inject stuff into your nose. silver, like ACS silver, nano silver. The Restore, there's a product called Restore. They have a nasal applicator that might work. But really and I've had troubles with my sinuses for a super long time. Carnivore has been the best thing. And you're not eating plants and dairy that will cause that to get congested. The other thing about the sinuses is black cumin seed forte, which is a product from MediHerb. Okay, and maybe there's another version that might be as good. I doubt it. Black cumin seed has been fantastic for cleaning out the sinuses. Okay. Dealing with high microprolactinoma on pituitary. So pituitary tumor causing high prolactin, therefore lowering testosterone. Well, any pituitary, or I'm sorry, any tumor, cyst, fibroid, you got to go into ketosis. And that gets rid of pathological tissue. So just try it. I'm not saying it's going to work, but a pituitary tumor, keto. Okay. I love your different take on modern medicine. Most doctors are just pawns to big pharma, pushing prescriptions for money. I'm going to make a little comment on that, Xenox. So yeah, the medical doctors are like a sales army, really, by force. And they have to recommend the drug or else they get in trouble with their license, enforced by the state medical board, enforced by the federal government or big pharma. Like, it's all one big system. Now, what's interesting, which I've been sort of discovering, is that the reason why the reason why patients get controlled into the system is, for example, let me give you this example. So let's say somebody is on painkillers and they're on Social Security disability. So they're getting free money from the government, and they go to their doctor every 3 months. They get a new prescription for their painkillers. And let's say the patient says, oh, I've been on CBD oil and now my pain is 50% better. I need less painkillers. Now they're in trouble. And the doctor says, get off the CBD oil or you lose your free money. Because the doctor becomes in charge, and the doctor is losing cred, street cred with the pharma reps and the state medical board, because they don't want patients on CBD oil. And they take a loss when a patient gets better, because then the patient leaves their practice, and then they lose their points. They actually have a point system, the doctors do, and based on the point system, they have an income. So that's how this system works. You get trapped into it, especially if you're a ward of the state, if you're on disability or something, or Medicare. Like you're over the age of 65, now you're in that system. So you got to break free from that. You got to be careful with what you say yes to. Okay. All right. Good question. Is it bad for people with cancer to do anaerobic exercise? Oh man, that's a really good question. I would do the burst training. So you can do short period of time, hardcore sprint, let's say 30 seconds or 60 seconds, and then you rest for 4 or 5 minutes, and then do that 3 times. That'd be better. And that drops, the whole point is get into ketosis and stop the lactic acid cycle. Get your body burning ketones and starve those cancer cells, because they love sugar. They love depends on the cancer too, but they love other forms of fuel. And for most cancers, they respond to ketosis. So burst training, also known as HIIT training, is the best for facilitating ketosis. Okay. Losing weight, but my belly just won't go away. Henry, if the belly's not going away, that you have to look at hormones. So run a test for cortisol, go to your holistic doctor, do a saliva test where you spit for a sample of cortisol. And it could be even estrogen. Maybe your estrogen's too high compared to testosterone. That'll cause you to keep the weight on the belly. And the best way to raise your testosterone up is exercise with weights in the morning, fasted, between 5 a.m. and 9 a.m. That's your window. Okay, so you're in ketosis, you're fasted, it's early, and you're pushing weights around. After massive exposure to mold, the back of my throat glows under UV light. Eesh. Have you ever seen this? No. You got a lot of killing of mold to do and detoxing of mycotoxins. Best advice for psoriasis is the carnivore diet and kill parasites and make sure your kidneys are working well. Those are the three things you have to look at. If you need help, you got to contact me. Contact the office. Do you have experience with serapeptase? I don't sell serapeptase, but I have like 9 enzyme products. And actually one of my products I think has it in there. But there's a lot of enzymes that can clean up the inflammation and the plaquing of the arteries. So I don't think serapeptase is anything super special other than the marketing is great. And it seems like every 4 years there's a marketing push on something new, which I'm happy about. Like resveratrol was once, I remember that. And it's worth it, I'm glad that the marketing push was there. Would carnivore be okay for hyperthyroidism? I don't know. I don't have any experience with that, but the carnivore diet would be like the Homo sapiens diet. So typically the Homo sapiens diet is good for Homo sapiens. The best thing for hyperthyroidism would be for some very calming minerals. Now, it's a scary diagnosis, and MDs will want to radiate your thyroid, cut it out. They're going to save your life. But I've had people with hyperthyroidism, and we're able to calm it down and fix it with nutrition only. You'd have to be a patient for me to walk you through that. Okay. Those with PTSD. Yeah, PTSD, in my opinion, is a super big B vitamin deficiency. So cataplex B or cataplex G, but primarily cataplex B. That's a really good question. Now, the PTSD could be like a year's worth of divorce proceedings or like one instant bad news. So either way, it's the same stress on the body. Emotional, physical stress is the same on the body, with the adrenals pumping out, adrenaline and this cascade of events happening. And then your nervous system gets wacky and it soaks up all the B vitamins from the liver. And now the liver can't detoxify. Your blood gets dirty. You end up with lactic acidosis. You end up with the toxicity and hypoxia of lactic acidosis. Not that your lactate is high, but it could be. And remember, lactate is not a cause of disease. It's a signal that something's going on. You got to fix it. Lactate does not cause disease. All right. Is there any fat you would cook meat on? I don't cook meat in fat. But if I did, it would be bacon grease, or I don't know, I let it cook in its own juices if I ever do it on a pan. And I had a patient tell me this great advice, and it's been really great. I put a steak in the oven at 250 degrees for 45 minutes. And then I put it on the grill, high heat, very quickly to sear the outside. That was fantastic. When it's in the oven, it's sitting in its own juices, so it doesn't lose that moisture. So 45 minutes at 250 degrees, then the grill. Absolutely fantastic. Is Kodo silver the same as silver water? Possibly. I don't know. It depends on the brand. What CBD oil do you recommend? I don't recommend one. You'd have to do your own research on that. Will carnivore diet get rid of migraines? I don't know. You have to find out by trying it. And we have a lot of various successes with migraines. All right. Okay. Hopefully the Illuminati doesn't put a hit on you for exposing these clowns. Yeah. Husband had shingles in his 40s. He still has symptoms 4 years later. That's horrible. I noticed Costco offers a series of 2 shots for shingles. What do you recommend? I recommend fixing his body inside. So he's got a virus in his body. He's got to avoid the foods that feed the virus. Go on YouTube, search my name plus antiviral diet. I did a video about it. Below the video is the antiviral diet. No dairy, no nuts, no seeds, and there's a few vegetables to avoid. So, and then if he wants to be a patient, we got supplements to help the body kill viruses. So Clarification. I'm going to finish with this one. Clarification. You say lactic acidosis is the mechanism of chronic. It's the most common mechanism of chronic disease. You just said lactate does not cause disease. Correct. Did you mean that lactate isn't bad until it creates acidosis? Lactate isn't bad until it's too high. The point is, lactate gets cleared out of the body by the liver and the kidneys. And if those are dysfunctional, like in diabetes, then you have a buildup of lactate. If you have a buildup of lactate because you're diabetic and you're always doing glycolysis and the mitochondria aren't working good, then you shuttle the pyruvate over to lactate, then that's another problem. You can have lactate for a couple different reasons. So you got to fix the reasons why it's there. I got plenty of videos on that. It's a whole subject. It's a whole topic. And I've been looking for some other professionals on social media. I just thought of somebody I'm going to ask him to be on for an interview. And I read an article that he wrote probably back in 2008. And I actually saw him give a lecture on this subject back in 2002. And I completely forgot about him recently until now. So I'll have him on. Otherwise, I've been telling some other biochemists and physiologists and stuff, hey, here's this thing I have this idea on. And I've been reading all these books. And nobody's really taken the hook yet. And but I'm going to get this other person on. So here's a good question before I end off. What diet would you recommend for a type 1 diabetic and to lose belly fat? I've had fantastic results with the ketogenic diet for type 1 diabetes, where the blood sugar is 300 and now it's stably at 120 or 110 every single day, not going up above 120. I have a friend whose dad is over 70 years old, type 1 diabetic since he was a child, and he's a total vegan. And that's been working for him. He's been a vegan probably probably more than 20 years that I know of. It could be, 40 years. I don't know, but that's working for him. But in my opinion, I think the ketogenic diet is the best one because then you get your proteins in and you get your fats. You're not fat deficient. Okay. So if you want to be a patient, you got to email or call the office. This is my plug. I've given you a half hour worth of good information. Just give me 20 seconds to plug my office. Now YouTube they turned my channel down, and it's crazy how my numbers have crashed as far as like number of views per day, number of subscribers per day, and they're out to get alternative healthcare practitioners. And Google owns YouTube, and Google's doing it to these other websites too. And I do see the effects in my office here. So during my lectures or during my live streams like this, I gotta give you my little plug. So we have people fly in. I just had a guy last week fly in from Hawaii. This week I have a guy from Nigeria, and both individuals are doing 5 visits. It's called the Heart Travel Package. And we run this HSR. It's called the Heart Sound Recorder. And we can see the improvements in the heart day after day after day, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And then I'm recommending supplements based on symptoms and muscle testing and the HSR. And in 3 days, there's positive changes. It's fantastic. So all based on nutrition. My purpose in life is to bankrupt drug companies. I am unsuccessful so far. And the way that you bankrupt drug companies, I used to think you would have to sue them or pass laws. That's not going to work. And you just have to get a lot of sick people well. And a lot of my recommendations for supplements are now available on Amazon. And there are a few that I can sell that are only available through healthcare practitioners. So anyways, so my job is to help solve your puzzle. So you read an article and you say, oh, I need this supplement. And you take the supplement. You read another article. Yeah, I need this supplement too. Before you know it, you got 30 supplements in your kitchen and you feel exactly the same. That's a problem. So what we do in this office is we are the puzzle solvers. We start at the beginning and we say, what happened when you started before you got sick? And we look at your diet. Even when you were a kid growing up, you tell us how your diet was. Did you have a mold exposure? Did you have some sort of a toxicity? I got to tell you, a guy recently, his coronary artery calcium score used to be 1700. And then a year later, he's been in ketosis. He's been taking the right supplements, especially Nanobac-TX. 1 year later, his score is 1800 something. So it got worse. And they said, well, the only other factor would be infection. And where do infections hide? Where do the bugs love to hide? In the jaw. And so he went to the biological dentist. He got the 3D X-ray called the cone beam. They found 4 infections where his wisdom teeth were pulled out when he was 19 or 20 years old. So he's got to get those drilled out, ozonated, ozone water, flush out that bacteria, clear all that stuff out. And there are 3 other teeth that are questionable. So 7 possible infections in the jaw. When I got that, oh boy, I talked about that documentary, Root Cause. This guy talks about the cavitations. And this was one of my viral videos that was going on in June. I had 2 viral videos happening at once, and I was getting 500 to 700 new subscribers a day. When YouTube found out, they turned my channel down. 4 days later, I was only getting 30 new subscribers a day. So they don't want you to watch this. So don't watch it. Don't you dare watch this. All right. So my email and the phone number is below. And I'm going to start doing some videos. I'm thinking Friday mornings early. That way I can catch people in the UK and in Australia. So Friday mornings, maybe like 7:30 or something. That's what I'm thinking. Let me know your thoughts on that below. I'm still going to do Mondays and Wednesdays at 6:10 p.m. Eastern time. Okay, see ya.